is, but he's not saying
Rob is
anything.
here. And so Tony is the only one absent this evening. Welcome. We received a copy of the meeting minutes from our October 9th meeting. Are there any amendments to the minutes needed before I ask for a motion to approve? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Great. All those in favor? Any abstentions? Marianne, Jessica, and Jim Haynes. Thank you. We do have an adjustment to the agenda that's in your folder. We will have an executive session tonight to discuss a legal matter. The meeting tonight. All right. At this moment, I'd like to invite people to address the board. And let me just go see if anyone has signed up. Nobody has signed up, but is there anyone that'd like to speak to the board tonight? Okay, hearing none. We'll go into the board chair report. I came in having nothing planned because I just lose track of time, but tonight is Amanda Seidel's last meeting with the board. Amanda has been serving on the board for 6 years. So most seasons are close to it, board member. So I've had the pleasure of working with Amanda since I joined 5 years ago, and she served as my mentor and served as vice chair for a period of time, has led the education committee in a very productive way. We truly appreciate her years of service and are going to miss her tremendously. And she just has a way about her to communicate with passion and with great thought, but with great respect as well. And I've always appreciated that about Amanda. So do you have anything that you'd like to share?
I didn't prepare a speech. No, just thank you very much. I kind of joined the board on a whim, not having a clue what I was getting into. But I've certainly learned a lot. I've enjoyed my time overall. There have certainly been some challenges we're learning opportunities, I like to say. So I just really appreciate everyone's time and effort, and I have a different appreciation for how much work it really is to be up here and have to make the decisions that you have to make each time you meet. So
Thank you. Thank you. Marianne?
I would like to just say to you that my experience of working on the board over this past year, in my experience, you are a model of what I hope to become.
Oh,
my God,
that's so sweet. Are there tissues? No, all of us just shush. Marianne did a good closing remark. All right, enough of that. All right, Willisha. Thank you, Amanda. All right, we'll go into personnel.
We have nothing under personnel tonight, so we'll go to superintendent schools, reading essential behaviors, outcomes proclamation. This evening is Jim.
Apparently the guest internet is down. I'm having, pull up, there we go, even better. Thank you. Education enables all students to learn the skills, acquire the knowledge, and develop the attitudes necessary for them to reach their potential as citizens who can meet the challenges of a changing global society. We believe that all citizens in our community share the responsibility to educate our children and themselves, our schools, our community support systems, and should welcome and encourage all members of our communities to participate. And our schools will have a supportive and empowering atmosphere for all students and community members.
Thank you, Jim. Law enforcement personnel requests thereof as of today. I've had no requests. Item C, update and overview of before and after school programming. We have 3 of our presenters here this evening, so I won't introduce an individual, I'll just introduce the entity. And so we'll start off by who would like to go first? Or have the YMCA go first. Thank you. So these are 3 programs before. These are 3 programs that we have running for the benefit of our children. And these people will give us an update as to how it's going. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having us. I didn't come with my large entourage or with any hassling from, as I have the last few times, so I appreciate the opportunity to give you an update. So we've provided you with I'm going to go through this, so I'd rather have you listen to me before you look at these, but this really gives all of the information that I think is pertinent to all of you in terms of how things are progressing. So I'm always an optimist, so let me start with the positives. This gentleman right here is absolutely the #1 positive. The Principal Rue, is just phenomenal. He has been so extremely helpful and supportive. We truly, I will tell you, we couldn't have asked for a better situation than working with him. Also, the staff has been incredibly supportive. Technology is available to us there, which is great. We have been given an adequate indoor space to hold our program. We have access to the library, we have access to the cafeteria, and we have access to the gymnasium when it's not being used. However, basketball season is upcoming, so we know that that's going to become an issue. We travel, take the kids to Bangor to swim regularly, and we have taken them on some fun educational field trips to Colin Transportation Museum and some other things. And then we also have the Winterport kids, they participate in special days and activities at the Y for when there's an early release or if there is any sort of a vacation day. So those are the positives, with certainly Principal Rue being at the top of the list. Our challenges, there are many. There has been a significant decline in participation, and when you open that up, you'll see there's a chart that in 2017 we had 39 kids in the program. In 2018 we had 48 kids in the program, and this year we have 15 kids in the program. The two key reasons that we have talked to all of our parents who were with us the last several years, and number one is they don't feel comfortable sending their young child to a middle school. So that seems to be the consistent message for many of them. And the other, which we're going to try to figure out, and we hope that hopefully you can help us with this, is that there are a lot of kids that are at Smith who are in after-school clubs, and so the bus leaves and they go to their after-school club at Smith, and then there's no way for them to get down to our program. So we've had several families ask if there's any possible way to do that. So maybe that might be something that we can consider. There is no playground for the kids, which is a consistent complaint from parents. If we want to go to the closest playground, we have to plan a day in advance so that we can give the families notice and get their permission. The outdoor space that we do have is a tarred parking lot, which is definitely not optimal. We do have access to the trails, but it's not really feasible to play the games and do the activities on the trails. We really do need a grassy area for that. We have significantly limited access to the gymnasium in the coming months once the basketball season begins, and that's going to be very difficult because it's those winter months that we really do need that large space inside to really help kids get a lot of their energy out. And we have to be more careful because we do love this principal so much. We have to be careful about the program materials that we use because Wagner has all carpet floors, so it's difficult for us to do sandboxes and Play-Doh and things like that we've always done with all of our kids in the past. So inside this, you will see that besides our enrollment chart and the things I just told you, we have some parents, what parents have said to us. So I'm going to just kind of try to briefly read a couple to you. Transition has gone smoothly for the most part. The kiddos miss having their nice playground, but I know the staff have done their best to deal with what choices they've been given. And getting the kids to Abbott Park once in a while is the next best thing. At our home, we have also had to deal with the unfortunate fact that she cannot join in after-school activities that she participated in before. She was able to do that last year because the Y-Works was right there. Because she's concerned that once basketball starts, we will be confined to the library and the kids will get restless. Another one talks about the fact that the staff has done an incredible job adjusting to the situation, that her 4-year-old that she loves having them with the same people, that there wasn't even a choice for her, and that everyone works as a cohesive team at the Y, and the core the kids receive is second to none. That being said, the transition from Smith School to Wagner has not been without issues. I continue to be frustrated by the lack of playground at Wagner, which means the kids spend significantly less time outside than they used to. The fields in the gym at the school are often not accessible, as there are middle schoolers playing sports in those areas. Our elementary kids are surrounded by an environment that was not designed for them. For example, my first grader has found books with scary images in the library at Wagner, and that has continued to scare him days later. As the library is where the kids now have to spend most of their time, issues like this are expected, yet very unfortunate. There have also been kinks that have been worked out regarding busing the kids from Smith to Wagner. Again, keeping them in the elementary school environment is the preferred choice, because it was designed for their ages. Another mom says that my son is 8 years old. He attends Smith School. He was a bit apprehensive to have him attend the after-school care, as I've always had him at home. Even though I work home, I need that time to be able to focus on her job. I'm so glad he attends the Y after-school care. He absolutely loves it. Every day he gets lots of playtime to do his homework and a lot of exercise. His socialization and his communication has been awesome. And then what kids are saying, I like the counselors. I asked my mom to pick me up late so I can play with my friends longer, because we do so many fun things, and so on and so forth. So we're making the best of it. I would love to sit here and say to you all that, oh, I was so wrong, that it wasn't going to be difficult, or that we wouldn't lose a lot of our families that we've had for more than a decade, but I can't do that, so we're just going to remain positive and keep focusing on the things that we do love about just still continuing to have our program here in Winterport, and look for opportunities to help make some of those changes that we feel we need to make, especially getting kids who we don't want to take them from the clubs, we want to give them that opportunity, but we do want to be able to get them to Wagner when it's appropriate. Any questions?
I very much appreciate the thoughtful approach, and appreciate the positives, but also very much appreciate the challenges as we continue to look at what we want to do in the coming school year.
Great, great. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, next we'll go to Kids Corner, our representative or representatives for our Kids Corner program.
I also do have a handout for you this evening. A little hand around for you. My name is Shelley Abbott. I'm the Recreation Director for the Town of Hampden. This is Jill McLaughlin. She's our Kids Corner Director for our before and after school program. The Town of Hampden's recreation program, the Kids Corner program, was also a program that was displaced with the move-in of Champions this current school year. We are a program that offers before and after school care for K to 5 students. We're based at the Scan Rec Center, which is across the street from McGraw and Weatherby schools. Our program encompasses a variety of activities from homework time to arts and crafts, games, outdoor play, and themed activities. We consider ourselves an active recreation program where all participants are expected to participate in the group activities. And currently, RSU 22 is providing busing to get to and from the rec center to the schools. Just a general overview of our program. We're open from 7 to 8:30 in the morning at the Scan Center and 3 to 5:30 in the afternoon. We have shortened our program this school year by 30 minutes in the after-school session due to the other programs that do occur at the Scan Center. We try to create a good balance of what we had prior to this change and still open opportunities for everybody to utilize the Scan Center facility, because having 5.5 hours a day of after-school programming has really impacted the other things that we do for other sets of folks in our programming. We were in the McGraw and Weatherby schools for 20 plus years prior to this current school year. Currently the facility we are in is a leased facility. We lease it from historic Hampden Academy. We are not open in service, vacation, and holidays at the Scan Center because of the other programs occurring there. There just isn't space to house students all day long or a half a school day. So we pretty much only go when school is in session currently. So while we were in the schools, we did increase our enrollment. In 2006, we saw an expansion. In 2013, we saw an expansion. And in 2014, we saw an expansion. Unfortunately, the need kept growing beyond what we felt we could do, considering the type of program that we wanted to run and being active. When we left the school in this past year, we were running both at the McGraw-Weatherby School in the morning and afternoon, and had 60 children in the afternoon and 50 children in the morning, split equally between the two. Currently, we are at the Scan Center. We have 40 students capacity. We did lessen our capacity knowing that we would have to be busing the students, and we do share a facility with another daycare that does also before and after school programming. So figuring the 40, we picked that number based on what their capacity was, and figuring what we needed to get on one bus size. So that's how we picked the 40. We maintain a 1-to-8 student to staff ratio, and that's self-imposed because we are not licensed, we're not under any guidelines per se, but we do that because we feel that that's how we can safely manage the kids. We currently do our registration online. This has been, I think, we're in our 3rd year that we've done it online. This was the first year we did not fill our program. We are about half capacity of the lesser capacity that we took this year. So as Diane echoed, we have seen a drastic decrease in our numbers also. I don't believe that there's any greater need this year than there has been in the past. I'm thinking there's around 100 families that are looking for before and after school services. And now you're just dividing it 4 ways, basically. Before you were dividing it 2 to 3 ways. We currently have openings both in the morning and afternoon. Again, as I said, there are 4 providers here in the Hampden school system: the Bangor Y, Hampden Recreation, Frosty's Learning Center, and now the Champions program. The next slide that's in front of you will show our current participation numbers for 2019 based on AM and PM by the day. So you'll see we're about half capacity in the mornings consistently, a little bit more than we're at 30 in the middle of the week in the afternoon, and less on Monday and Friday. Monday and Friday have always tended to be lesser enrollment days in history. I also wanted to give you a kind of a sample of what we do, because I know as we have reviewed the change when Champions was brought in, it was a STEM or STEAM-based program idea. We are recreational in nature with a homework and reading time component. So the next slide that's in front of you gives you a little idea of how we work our groups. We're currently working off a 2-group system with the children we have, dividing them by grade level and help me, Jill. We divide them by grade and personality. I think it's probably a good way to put it. Sometimes we have to mix things up a little bit. But we do provide student-supported homework during that time, a monthly special activity based on our activity calendars that Jill puts out. We also do give them guided student choice opportunities on a regular basis, including club days. And the next slide shows you a few of the special things we've done this far in the school year. We are doing a monthly pancake breakfast with our morning kids. We had Fire Safety Day with a visit from the fire truck. We're currently this week doing Harry Potter Week. We'll be having pumpkin carving the end of this week. We've done scarecrow building. We'll be having our Halloween open house next Wednesday evening. We've also done special sports units in field hockey, volleyball, and floor hockey. And Jill's planning a really great day next month called Jilly Wonka Day. So, like Diane said earlier, we also have challenges, successes, and requests for the future. I kind of called it the good, the bad, and the future in the slide in front of you. Our successes that we've found This change has allowed for us to do more advanced preparation with setup and allow for multi-day programming and project options because we can leave things set up or get things set up earlier. It's also allowed, we have exclusive use at the Scan Center, so we're not getting bumped out for concerts or Girl Scouts or parties and that kind of stuff. It's also allowed us to do some redesign on our own. You know, we know that it was a time probably we needed to reflect on our program and bring in some new and innovative ideas. And it did kind of reinvigorate us to go back and relook at what we were offering. And lastly, it's an active outlet for students in a familiar environment. Most of our participants are very familiar with the Scan Center. They're familiar with the faces that are at the Scan Center. We haven't had any changeover in staff with Jill and I. 17 years, Jill's 15 years, so they're very familiar with us. And people are accustomed to the quality they're going to get with our program. The challenges that we're seeing, you know, is very similar to what the Y is seeing. We don't have an outdoor play space. We don't have a playground, and because of our location with our parking, we are fortunate to have a field space, but it's quite a distance from our building, so getting the kids up and down the hill and that parent, when the parent pickup arrives, it is posing a challenge for visibility. It is an off-site location. We're not in a school, and I think there's that comfort level of being in a school for a lot of families. They like the fact that their students don't leave the school grounds, and I think that was a little more for some families to overcome, and they ended up going with a different program this year. The busing's been a sort of an issue. It's really taking quite a long time for the kids to get to the school. They're arriving anywhere between 20 and 35 minutes after school lets out to come across the street. So we're trying to be patient, but it really varies. Like today they were there at 3:15, but we've had days that they haven't gotten there till 3:45 in the afternoon. So it really cuts down to what we're able to do because we're standing around waiting for them to get there. And it shortens the ability for us to provide the program that they so badly need and deserve. We also are facing some issues, I think, with recruitment of younger students. We've always had no issue attracting those K-1 students. That seemed to be historically the biggest need. This year we have just a handful of kindergarten students. Most of our students are older students who've been with us and stayed with us. So going forward, you know, I'd like you all to consider maybe we do something where we can do a recruitment fair where people are given the opportunity to realize really what their choices are and put those in front of people. Because it's easy to go to Champions because they're in the school and they're the most familiar. But there are other options for people, and I think we all need to be encouraging these families to know what all their options are so that they can make the choice that's best for their family. And then we also have seen a loss of revenue. We are a town department, so we are under a budget. Unfortunately, because we have seen such a downturn, our budget's hurting this school year. And what does that mean for the future? Well, that's really up to our town council and how they want to look at it. But, you know, we have to look for other programs, but we value the service that Kids Corner provides. But if it's not helping us make our bills, you know, what is the future going to look like for us? So we have to be really cognizant of what the impact on our taxpayers are with the loss of this revenue and trying to still keep the type of services that our residents are accustomed to. And then lastly, requests for the future. You know, as a town, we're just looking to continue to be able to utilize the transportation aspect that you all have provided to us. We'd like to request support with our summer camp again. We've been at the Reedsburg School for a number of years. We hope that arrangement can continue because right now we do not have a space for our summer camp at the Skiing Center with everything else we're doing currently. I met with Regan last spring and she extended her support of if there are programs that were displaced on a shorter term basis that we could get back up going, that, you know, we'd like to take you up on that offer. We're still trying to figure out how things are working, but, you know, that support sort of things that have been displaced because of timing, you know, maybe we can get into a school building for a shorter period of time to do something else. And then lastly, as you consider what the future is for your Champions program, you know, consideration that you give other agencies the opportunity to be considered for the future needs. So if something changes in what your desires are, if you know, come back and look at your local providers of these other services. So in closing, again, I want to thank you all for giving us this opportunity to be here. It's great to be able to hear about the other programs. Thank you for allowing us to be in the schools for the past 20 years. You know, it really made our department come from a little tiny seasonal department to what it is today, and being able to have this scan center and the opportunities that we can afford our community for recreation. But I do ask that you also remember to always consider the bigger picture. What's best for the kids and their families? What's best for our community? And is there a need being served, and is there support for that service? And lastly, I already mentioned this one earlier, but you know, as we move forward into the future, allowing us to promote all the programs and all the opportunities that exist for families across the board. I mean, I know when I talk to people, I talk about the Y as an option, Champions as an option, Frosties as an option. I know there's private facilities, home daycares too, I don't know all those, but I tell people these are what your options are, and we're all different. And that makes us unique, and it allows people to make the choices that works best for their families. And I think it's important to have these choices. So, because we all have unique facilities, formats, structure, and leadership. And thank you all. If you have any questions, I have my information and Jill's information there. We're happy to take them at any time or shoot us an email.
Thank you so much,
Thanks.
Shelley.
Okay, Shelley, thank you very much for that overview. And now our representative from Champions, please.
So we went a little different way. We have a PowerPoint presentation for you, which I'm happy to email to the board after, so that you all have a hard copy of that. And while they're setting that up, I just want to take a minute to introduce myself. So my name is Lori Lee, and I'm the area manager for Champions here in Maine. And I live here in Maine. I live right in Waldo, so I'm definitely part of the community. And was, you know, I grew up in Orono. I'm 100% on board with providing quality care to the children of Maine, and I'm so excited that we've been able to bring care to the children of RSU 22. So I'm just going to talk for a brief minute, and then you're going to hear from our site directors that are in your schools. Slide 4. So as most of you know, Champions is part of the KinderCare brand, and we have been lucky enough to care for children for 50 years. And in those 50 years, we've been able to do a lot of research about what works and what doesn't work, and we have a whole educational department that writes our programming for us for these amazing people to implement in their schools. We've also been able to fine-tune our hiring process, so we're getting really qualified individuals in our sites to run the sites for you. You've probably also heard that we have our 6 service values, that we build great relationships with our families. We respond to the unique needs and interests of every child in our care. We anticipate and quickly resolve any family's concerns. Our team works together to make our programming warm and welcome. We genuinely care about every child in our classroom, and we are an important part of our job is talking with the parents about their children on a daily basis. So what can you expect when you come into a Champion site? And I would invite any of you to stop by a Champions at any time. We'd be happy to give you a tour and see what's going on. But as you know, we have a STEM program. So our kiddos are working with Kibo, which is a robot that they code to make them do the hokey pokey, or in Jasmine's site, they drew a whole city on one of the days, in-service days. We have creative arts, we have our library area, we have our puzzles and games. And we do also promote homework. However, there's been a little misconception that I want to clear up. We don't have a homework contract, we have a homework agreement, and that agreement is with the parent and the child. They decide how much homework their kiddo is going to try and work on or not try and work on. We offer it to them, but no child is ever forced to do homework or to do any other activity. Each program also has fitness components as well, so not only outside, but inside as well, they're doing fitness and games. And before I turn it over to Bobby, I just wanted to give you the numbers for each site. So at Smith School, we currently have 26 children. At Weatherby, we currently have 36 children, and at McGraw, we have 41 children currently enrolled. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Bobby Hayes, who is our site director at Smith.
Hi, I'm Bobby, and I come to Champions with a background in education. I have a bachelor's degree in English. I spent most of my educational career working with RSU 71, first as a literacy specialist before having my own children. And then I took some time off, and then I came back and worked with RSU 71 with their 21st Century After School program, which is a grant-funded program. So I'm really excited to be at the Smith School. I can't thank Principal Moore enough. She's been so supportive. And I just want to highlight a few components of the Smith program. All of our programs are unique in their approach. One of the highlights of our program is the youth leadership opportunities we have. Our fifth graders have embraced the opportunity to be junior counselors, and they really take that seriously. They collaborate with other students to come up with project ideas. Right now, one of our junior counselors is spearheading a letter writing campaign. Her father is deployed to Guantanamo Bay, and we are writing letters to him and planning to send them over in time for Veterans Day. There are a lot of other, I routinely see my fifth graders meeting together to come up with creative project ideas, getting together with some of the younger students, teaching them, leading crafts, teaching them new games or game rules. Another key component of our program is just the fun that we have while learning and showing them that learning can be fun. Our most recent unit that we've been doing is gross and gooey physiology. And just in the last week, we've done science experiments to show the students how much, or the volume of digestive juices that are in our bodies. We've made, or we've mimicked what the body produces to heal and protect wounds. We've also made slime to show the purpose of snot and other mucus in our bodies, and kids love this, and they're so engaged. And it's just so much fun to see, and I think it really shows them that learning just isn't what happens in the classroom, but that we can do it in such unique and creative ways. I'm really excited about our next unit, which will be pop art. So we do a lot of that. And then a huge component at the Leroy Smith School is physical fitness and physical activities. And we are very fortunate to have daily access to both the outside space, the playground, and the gymnasium, and we daily take advantage of that. Our students were very driven to learn the correct rules of playing foursquare. So that has been something that we have done daily on the playground. And with that comes the teaching of the importance of sportsmanship. And so we've done a lot of that. And then during gym time, again, some of our older students really take a leadership role here in teaching group games to some of the younger students. And then we work together to introduce new group games to everyone. They also have some free time where they can hone their basketball skills or practice tumbling, but it's just a really great opportunity for them to get rid of some of that energy that's pent up from a day of being in the classroom. So we're really thankful for that. It has just been a really good experience at the Smith School. The staff has been great. I'm really excited about the direction that the program is going, and I've been really excited with the feedback that I've gotten from parents. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Callie, and I work with the little kiddos at McGraw. I have 8 years of experience in childcare. I have a 1-year-old daughter, And I am so, so, so passionate about building meaningful relationships with not only all the kiddos, but the families as well. I send out weekly slideshows and email blasts to the parents, constantly keeping them updated. I feel like I have a very good relationship with all of the families, which is super exciting. Working with the little kiddos, we do a lot of student-led activities. So I think that creates public speaking and leadership skills for the little ones. So I don't have junior counselors. So we have a different helper every day who stands up in front of all the kiddos and explains exactly what we're doing. And if they have questions, they first ask the little kiddo who's in charge, and then they look to me, and I help explain that to them. We also do this thing called Champions Box. So I think Champions Box is a lot of fun. The kiddos actually create it, and we open a Champions store every Friday. So what these kids do not realize is they are learning the value of $1. They are budgeting, and they're learning about responsible behavior. Because if I see kiddos helping another friend that's in need, I'm gonna slip them $1 and explain to them why they got that $1. And then when I open the weekly store, they get to come in and they realize like, oh, there's a really big toy that is $50, so they're gonna save up for that instead of just spending a couple of dollars and getting some pencils or books and stuff like that. So they have a lot of fun with that. And another big thing that we add is cultural awareness. So the kiddos and I made a box, and every day in circle time they get to pick from the box, and in a different language it says hello. So the kiddos, they all learn to say hello in this different language, and we go over some key facts about the country that we're talking about, and then we incorporate that in the rest of our day. So they have a lot of fun with that. We have children that come from a lot of different backgrounds, and that they get to stand up and talk to the class about where they come from and their culture and the foods that they eat, and it's really exciting to learn all about the kids. So I am having a lot of fun at McGraw. Mrs. Briggs is awesome, and I'm super excited for the rest of the year.
Jasmine?
Hi everyone, I recognize some of you, but for those who I haven't met before, my name is Jasmine and I'm the director at the Weatherby School. So a little bit about myself, I have a bachelor's in psychology. I'm starting a master's degree program in January, and I come from a very STEM heavy background with technology and even some like curriculum development and mathematics. So I was very fortunate to be placed in a school with exceptionally bright students. I am never ceased to be amazed with the kiddos that I have at Weatherby. And one of the things that has meant for my site is I have some student-driven clubs, which is really great. So I let my students decide which clubs and topics they were interested in. So we have a space club, a history club, and an all about people club, which is one part like sociology and cultural awareness and one part psychology. And they really blow it away constantly. We also have advanced tech track projects at the Weatherby School, which is great. As Lori briefly mentioned, I have had students code entire city layouts with a robot that then draws it on a giant floor plan. So that has been really great. I have also worked with them teaching video production, photo editing, and video game design. And of course it is all completely optional and very well monitored, but I definitely have had some kiddos who really excel in this area. And then lastly, one thing that I think we do really well is cultural awareness. So like I mentioned, I have an All About People Club, and every week we randomly select a country on a Friday. That day we make a poster about the country. This past week was Japan. So we made sushi, we learned about the politicians that are there, the history of the country, and then every day this week we have learned a new word in Japanese for the kiddos. And then the other question, the more psychology-based question that was pulled is what are emotions? And these kiddos are so bright that they were able to take a lot of the major theories of emotions that you learn a little bit later and actually had a great conversation for about 10 minutes about if they think emotions come from evolution or if they think it comes from like your brain first or your body first, and they just really got engaged and talked about that for a really long time. We do also obviously have physical activities that happen every day. We make sure they get outside every day, and just they get a lot of choices, but like I've said, I've just been blessed with a wonderfully intelligent group of kids and a great principal who's very supportive and also has a lot of wonderful after-school activities for those kids too. So, thank you guys.
And finally, we brought the kiddos to you. We have a short video so that you can see Champions in action. partnership. We're really excited to be part of RSU 22.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all three groups for that presentation. Karen mentioned the strengths, the shortcomings, and so on. If I did my mathematics correctly, we have approximately 155 children participating in the program here at school. I think speaks well for your commitment. I don't have the data, but I think many school districts do not have any before after school programs. So thank you very much for providing that for our children. Konnichiwa, where's that's Japan, that's good morning, by the way. So he says to your children's policy if they know what konnichiwa is.
That's the way you say it.
So Jasmine, ask them tomorrow
How do you say
that
it?
Dr. Lyons wants to know.
Konnichiwa? Well, that's close. It's close.
I'm sorry.
Come on now.
On video.
That's a pretty good job. Okay, all right. All right, we'll go to our young ladies.
I just want to say something about after-school care. From a student perspective, I was part of Kids Corner in McGraw and Weatherby, and it was really important to me, obviously my family as well, since that really helps them out and helps a lot of families out who can't pick up the kids after school. And there's a program at HA called Big Sisters and Big Brothers, and it's basically having the high school kids go and talk to the younger kids in McGraw and Weatherby and Smith School, and just sort of make connections. And the name kind of is self-explanatory, but I do have friends who work at Kids Corner, and I think that's a really awesome thing. And I also remember the importance of going outside, and I find it a little, I don't want to say disturbing, but it's a little troubling with the kids. They go to school, and they spend the whole day in class, there, and if there's not like a playground accessible, that they can't go outside, and by the time the parents pick them up around 5:30 or, whenever, they don't spend any time outside. So I really hope that can be resolved for both the Y and Kids Corner. So that's something that should be looked into. But I just wanted to say thank you to Jill and Shelley, because that was really important. And yeah. Oh, and about the yes, I did have something else. And Olivia,
Yeah.
do you want to talk about what we are going to be doing? So we are submitting a survey to the students of HA, and yeah, I'll just say like the categories. Okay. So we just want to talk about a few points, and I will send out an email to everybody on the board with the finalized questions. But we have some on the school board, like have you ever attended a meeting, and then we have some on preparation. Do you feel prepared for post-secondary education or life after high school? Then we have some about after-school activities and classes that students would like to see offered, and clubs and things like that. So, yeah. So we will be submitting that in the coming future and letting you guys know questions.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Rose. Oh, I skipped her. Oh, Ken, I'm sorry. I was all taken back by my
I couldn't help you with that.
All right, you couldn't. Ken White is
I wanna say
our representative FAP body. I also want to thank Tony. Tony brought this theme to my attention a couple months ago. And I included the article that kind of highlighted the conversation. So Ken and I have been in conversation. So Ken's going to give us an overview, and also like any other person delivering something, going to give us some options for the future. Ken?
So thank you very much for having me. Yes, as Rick mentioned, Tony had provided an article about a situation that occurred in the school, I believe in New York or Maryland.
Where was that? New York, you're right,
Okay.
Rochester Center. Right. Yep.
So cyber insurance is kind of a bigger name of some other evolving insurances. The one that the school has right now currently is data compromise insurance, also known as data breach. It's what's been out there with TJ Maxx and other things that have happened there where cyber criminals go in and obtain information either on credit cards, or it could be information about personnel from HR or medical records, that type of thing. So they obtain those, sell them on the dark web or whatever. Once the entity, whether it be a school or business or whatever else, finds out that they've been hacked, they oftentimes have to provide notifications. They may have to provide credit monitoring services, things like that. So there's an expense to all of that. Right now, the school district has a $50,000 limit for those types of situations. The article that Tony had provided is something that the cyber criminals are now doing. This is a cyber extortion or a cyber ransom situation where they go in and they basically lock down your systems, and then they will ask for, oftentimes, a ransom to unlock your systems. Now, a lot of times that ransom is fairly low because they actually want you to pay it. It didn't really take these guys very long to do what they've done. So if they get $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 out of you, they're happy because they can do this in a matter of minutes, and they do it all day long. But it can be, they can lock down your systems. It can be an inconvenience for businesses that have systems that operate, that are accessible through the internet, such as your air conditioning systems, your heating systems, what have you. Then they can cripple a business depending on what type of business it is. So to add that type of coverage, depending on the limit, a $100,000 limit for the extortion coverage would be about $586 a year to add it to the current policy that the school district has. Again, we can quote all different limits or whatever else, and that's with a $2,500 deductible. then there's another question about, but that's kind of a reactive situation. You know, that's not really gonna do much for you unless you have that situation. So the school was also asking about, you know, would there be anybody that would have providing risk mitigation services or anything like that? And there is another company, it's called Coalition, and they were actually a cybersecurity company that reverse engineered an insurance policy to cover the things they were seeing. So they can provide, as a comparison, $100,000 coverage with a $2,500 deductible for about $3,700 a year. They would do what they call a risk assessment test, where they go in and basically try to see how easy it is to get into the entity's systems and things like that. They can provide that assessment to the entity and then work with their IT department to try to close some of those openings in the school's IT. So some of this comes down to the IT department knowing, you know, the school systems, what the backups are, if the backups are accessible, or if they're separate. Because theoretically, if you weren't online or anything like that, you had no exposure, because they can't tap into you if you have no way in. But, you know, talking to a lot of the experts on this, which I'm not, they said, you know, if you're really good with your backups, and backups are separate from anything that they can tap into, but they've seen those things fail as well. The criminals are usually one step ahead of us, or several steps ahead. And the one that Tony had was a pretty big case.
Right. Anyone have any questions for Ken? Just so you know that Nate and Marie and I will be talking the upcoming months, because in preparation for the budget, in preparation for the budget, we may be contemplating what we might want to do to advocate for greater protection, but we'll get back to that. I just want to make sure that I follow up on Tony's point that this is alive and well, unfortunately, and hopefully nothing happens to RSU 22, but it is what it is.
And we have coverage for this now or no?
Have coverage for the data compromise, the data breach type of thing, but not a cyber ransom or cyber extortion. To get a $50,000 limit, which would match what you have for data breach, you'd probably be looking at about 350. Like I said, the 100,000 is 586 a year. It wouldn't be half of the 50,000, it'd be a little higher than that, so probably 350 or 400,000, $400.
At this point, are we backed up?
Yes.
Yeah, Nate,
Yes, we are.
So
you want to add, Nate, go right
we're
ahead.
backed up real.
Yes, we
well.
have local and cloud backup. Yes, to answer your question.
I couldn't imagine we didn't. but-
Right.
You mentioned that they do an assessment. So I guess my thought is, if you stayed with that company, does that mean the preceding years are cheaper because they've done such an analysis to start?
It's possible, because when they do the initial quote, they've done that assessment. So they're quoting based on what they've seen for an exposure at that time. So it is possible that it could be, you know, if those holes are mitigated, or it could be that the way that the entity operates, they say, yeah, we have those, but there's not much we can do about it. So it might be a situation where, you know, the risk doesn't change in the following year. And with any of these, you know, with either one of the companies, if there was a cyber ransom or cyber extortion, the companies put the district, the entity, in touch with people that do this all day long, so they can tell you what you're dealing with, what your next steps are, and everything else.
John?
That other company you mentioned, I forget the name of the other company.
Coalition, yeah.
Their premium is roughly 8 times as much as yours. Would you say that their coverage is 8 times better?
The coverage itself, yes, I would, because they're gonna provide some services up front that will hopefully keep you from having it, whereas the other one isn't going to really provide those upfront services. They're just gonna pay if you
Comes in
actually
after
have it.
that.
Yeah, so that's a lot of what you're paying up front for. Plus, I will say that the one that's higher has done the behind the scenes stuff, whereas the other company did have a questionnaire, but they were going in virtually.
When you and I spoke about it, it felt like
one that's higher is gonna try to keep all that happening, because even when the coverage is in place and everything, it's still, no different than a house fire or something like that. You've got the coverage, so it's better than ever happens.
In the field
Ron,
too.
It's actually just a question about maybe risk management. As of January first, are we prepared for the abandonment of pre-Windows 10 network operating systems?
We don't have a lot of Windows devices.
I didn't think we did in
Yeah.
school.
And then I would also add to the whole ransomware thing, it's not bulletproof, but the more you do to mitigate that from the start, the more likely they are to move on to a more vulnerable target. Does that make sense? So this is another reason why I think they can lower their premiums as well.
Other questions for Ken? Okay, Ken, thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Okay, now, briefing, we're down to monthly financial report.
So in your folders, you should find the financial report. So to give you context to the report, at this point, we have about 79% of the school year remaining, and we have about 69% of the fiscal year remaining. Of course, the fiscal year is July 1 to June 30th. With that context, we are moving well in our budget. You will see that there are some articles that are below that level. For instance, I'll take you down to Article 9, which is facilities management. We have a pattern of expenditures where we're doing summer projects that are quite heavy. So we have a lot of money that's out of the budget already, and of course you're seeing that in the paving and the parking lots, and the different projects in each of the schools, the flooring that was completed, so that's where those expenses lie. We also have a debt service expenditure that's been significant. The way debt service works in our budget is that we pay principal in, it's a November payment, but they've started having us pay it in October, so that's already out the door, and then we'll pay an interest payment in May. Other than that, we feel we're tracking well. We are recognizing that in Article 5, there are some expenditures that come out of the curriculum assessment area early because you're paying for programs for students up front for a year license. So things look good, and we reviewed this with the finance committee last week.
Any other report? I do want to make, or give a reminder, as we all know, Emil lost his wife last week. And I actually had a long conversation with him last night. Just as a reminder, we're going to have a celebration of life on Saturday at the Lucerne. What's the time, Regan?
1 o'clock.
Regan's been involved in helping that happen, 1 o'clock, so if you're interested, please attend that. Regan, Emil does know that unfortunately I'm not gonna be able to be there. I'm gonna be up north, my mother is celebrating her 90th birthday. But I promised Emil last night, he and I would get together to go to camp or something shortly after that. So if that fits into your schedule, again, Saturday, Lucerne, starting at 1 to 5. Thank you, Karen.
No assistant superintendent updates, well, I would say to you that today I attended MSSA, which is our superintendent state organization, and we heard from Joe Sanfilippo on changing the narrative for public schools and how we can work. It's dovetailing with our community relations efforts, so I look forward to meeting with that committee and sharing what I learned today. And then the main conference is coming up the next 2 days, so I look forward to seeing folks down there for our town. Thank you. Questions of board members?
Shelley Abbott brought up the long bus ride from across the road, and I don't want to answer tonight, but I'd just be interested in to find out why it's so long. Is there anything we could do to alleviate navigate that, where there's so many of those kids on that bus that maybe that bus has to go 2 minutes out of the school to get right at 30. So you don't have to answer tonight, I'd just be interested in that.
I made that note also, that's better than a lot of time, yes.
Marion?
Yeah, so within that law enforcement, line item,
Yes.
I just have a question about truancy notifications.
Yes.
September, October, any truancy letters go out to either the Walter County or the Hampden?
Unfortunately, I'm glad you asked that question. The answer to that is yes. We have 2 students in one of our schools that have not been in school this entire year. And we've been chasing them all around and so on and so forth. To make a long story short, I'm involved in the Waldo County Sheriff's Department the last couple of weeks. I actually made a referral myself to EHHS yesterday, and they're going to activate that case. I'm looking at Mrs. Moore. The good news is, Dawn, they came today. Is that correct, Dawn?
They will be beginning on Monday, they are
Beginning on
registered.
Monday, so they're obviously at Smith School. And I've been in numerous conversations with the dad, and I was very concerned because we couldn't locate the children. And we're talking about a 7 and 8-year-old child. So the good news is, Mary Ann, that it is turning around where now we know we can identify the children, we're getting the records, and hopefully they'll be in the school on Monday. Other than that, no, that's the only truancy case I've had.
So that would have been 2nd and 3rd grade?
No, 2nd and 3rd grade, is that correct?
First and second.
First and second, so first and second, Mary Ann, yeah. It's very, very rare that you get into the situation I just explained, very rare. But with this particular one, I set the truancy meeting up, the parents never showed up. I then sought out the Waldo County Sheriff's, they made a visitation. I was a little bit frustrated because we were led to believe they were enrolled in a neighboring district. Well, Gloria, my secretary, like any good secretary, administrative assistant does, called that district, and no, those children aren't here. So now we got back on the trail to try to track them down again, so we went a different route. So we had a great deal of persistence there, if you will.
Jane?
Kind of a follow-up on what Keith was talking about. Can we just kind of look into what we can do to get the kiddos from Smith to Wagner for their clubs? If they're not able to do that, and maybe there isn't a way, but I think that's kind of a sad thing.
I'll follow up with this in a minute.
And see what questions we have. That'd be great.
Just to follow up on the follow-up. The district has, I believe, 4 vans, is that correct?
Oh, no, we have more than that.
You have more than 4 vans.
13.
And so maybe those should be considered for transportation smaller numbers.
That's a possibility, but I will tell you, without any exact information, those vans are pretty much on the road before school, during school, and after school. But we'll follow up on that. I'll be in contact with Mrs. Moore on that question, and also Heath's question as well.
So, how
Yeah.
many vans?
I'm gonna guess 13 or 14.
A lot.
A lot.
Okay.
13 or 14.
Of vans,
Pardon me?
a fleet.
A fleet, there you go.
Marion?
I just want to take this opportunity to say that I really, really appreciate the little newsletters that we get from each of the schools. And I would like to acknowledge publicly and applaud Weatherby and Reedsbrook for starting their civil rights teams, and applaud the work of the civil rights teams at Smith and Wagner that have been ongoing for years. How many years have they been operating, those civil rights teams?
I think Smith is I think we're in our 6th year.
6?
I'm guessing close to 6. 6th or 7th, yeah.
Don, do you know how?
I'm not sure. What I do know is I just sent 2 staff members for specialized training with the state, and there's things going out in this week's newsletter to the parents in regards to that.
I just really want to applaud the leadership and work of all the staff that are involved in those programs. I think it's really an important program. And I would also like to commend Principal Rue for, I want to get this right, for his through their eyes approach at Wagner. I really applaud that.
Thanks. I will tell you one thing. The students are really nervous going through the interviews, which is good because we're coaching them through the process at the same time.
Thank you all.
Any other questions, board members?
In general, I've had a chance over the past program, the ability of perhaps parents to integrate with some of that program. These are, I would say, majority students that are getting A's and B's in all categories except for math. So I hope that we can continue to hone in on our Pearson program and our, perhaps, ramp up a little bit some of what, maybe parents can do to hone their own skills, because it's certainly the new math that we all were worried about as parents. But I do think there needs to be there's something going on that's not, just systemic with our turning off the switch on our ability to teach math. There's something larger than that going on. It seems to be affecting, quite a few kids in the entire district. And it just seems odd that, they're excelling in other programs, and that one seems to continue to be the Achilles heel for our district.
We'll follow up on that, Rob. I also want to announce to the board tonight, Mary Giard is not with us tonight. She's had another medical issue in her family, so she's dealing with that. And actually, when we get to the date a little bit later, Rita's going to introduce that, and I believe our building principal is going to cover that in Mary's absence, but I'll follow up on that.
As my daughter reminded me this just this week, my methods of math were in the good old days.
And so mathematics itself has changed drastically in the last 30 years?
Well,
The method.
methods.
She's doing great, but like, she just wants to do it. Any other questions? All right, we'll go right into policy considerations. John?
So we have two, that we covered 2 weeks ago. There's been no changes since then. So I move for second reading and adoption of, I guess we'll do this later. First one is policy BEV. I move for second reading and adoption.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor? Any opposed?
Same as for policy BEA. No changes since last time. So I move for second reading and adoption of policy BEA.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Having no old business, we'll go right into the new business and discuss and act on the overnight field trips.
Speaking of policy, per board policy, you are required to endorse the list of overnight field trips, so I have the list before you, it's pretty self-explanatory. If you have any questions, we can address those, otherwise I'd ask for your endorsement of the overnight field trips as corresponding exhibit.
I think I saw something that caught my attention. I'm having difficulty pulling it up. One of them is, I'm just going to Jazz All-State Festival, January 2 through 4.
Yes?
That's in Bangor this year. How's that an overnight trip?
Well, let's see if Mr. Tracy can answer that. Jazz overnight, Jazz All-State, January 2 to 4, Bill.
Let me pull up my calendar. That is sitting, it's at Bangor. I'll have to check on that one.
All right, Jim.
It doesn't seem like a responsible use of funds.
No.
All right, Jim, very good question.
Hold on a second. Why don't you just always had your hands up if you thought you could answer that? Any input?
I think I thought you were talking about the, regular jazz dates.
No.
Yeah, so it's all state. I was gonna say that I
No,
know
All-State. Okay.
the jazz dates, they do an overnight thing.
Yeah.
And I was ready to talk about that, but that's something different.
Certainly Bangor wouldn't be overnight. That's a good question. John, you had a question?
I was just wondering, I know it's a big trip, the South Africa one, but that's set for 2021. Do we approve that now? Or would it be on for next year?
Bill, do you have a comment on the South Africa trip now versus it's not occurring until 2021?
It's not, but we just want to make sure that you're in support and you're in the know so that we can continue to discuss with families.
Was that on last year also?
Yeah.
I think it
Oh,
was, yes, so I'm sure probably Reed will bring that back next year. Yeah, he's pretty sure. So yes, with the notation of John and a notation of Jim and Bangor, then I would ask for your endorsement of these overnight trips. Per board policy.
I have a question. The softball trip, can you tell me a little bit about that, Bill? What's this, is this something that, we did this last year?
We did the
I remember,
softball
and we thought it was a one-year deal,
Okay,
and so I was surprised to see that this year, this is time it's in Tennessee.
The This is the idea to actually get out in some decent
I
weather.
can't hear you.
So the idea is to get out in some decent weather and be able to get out on the practice field and be able to go south to play. I don't know that there's any, well, I know there isn't, there's no cost to the district to do it, it's
Right.
families.
So fundraise.
No cost to the district. Other questions?
I guess I just, for the out-of-country trips, I'd like to know a little bit more about, the details of those. I know they're still in the future, but having gone to South Africa in recent years, there's quite a bit that has to be done in advance, and I'd love to know that all those things are checked off before we give it back to those board.
I'll follow up on that. Thank you. Okay, I ask for your endorsement of the list as noted.
You need a motion?
Yes, we do.
So moved.
I'm sorry, what was the motion?
To approve the overnight field trips as conveyed in the correspondence.
There was a request to do it as a line item though, not as a slate, right?
I requested that we just take the two out-of-country from the state.
Okay.
So
All right.
for information.
I mean,
Again,
we-
if there's plenty of time, if there's an issue with the 2020 trip to Greece, we might want to expedite the information on that, but
So, John, you can keep your motion on the floor if you'd like, and we can just have a motion to amend with Rob's recommendations, or you can withdraw and we'll just.
I'll withdraw my motion.
So, Rob is recommending that there be a motion on the floor to approve as a slate with the exception of the out-of-state,
out-of-country.
out-of-country, and also with the exception of the Jazz All-State Festival that's in Bangor.
Can I,
He can't move.
can I make a
Oh, go
point?
ahead.
Those overseas ones that we do, just as a FYI, we use a company called World Strides. So it's World Strides, so it's like a EF Tours type thing, so we do a lot through them, which makes the process much easier, and we follow a pattern, a prescribed process.
Could we have a presentation, just a primer on what they provide at the next board meeting, perhaps?
And then put it in.
Absolutely.
Bill and I'll talk on that, yes.
So, I'm sorry, was there a motion
No.
before there was a second? I was like, he motioned, no, from this direction, but a deeper voice. So you wanna make the motion?
So moved.
All right, we have a motion.
Maybe.
John's made the motion and Rob's seconded. How about that?
There you go.
All right, any questions
I have a question.
about what the motion is?
A question. If we take these international, trips out of here right now, is that gonna mess up timing? Or planning?
It's already been approved in the past, so it's one of those things where we are going. We have 30 paid tickets going to the Greece trip. I mean, so we can take it off and not approve it and pull all that back, but I'm not sure how World
You
Strides.
sound like my 11-year-old self.
Sorry.
Right, I guess that's what, yeah, because I didn't know we had already approved.
Well,
except we're not disapproving these out-of-country trips.
Right.
We are simply asking for more
More.
information.
I
I
think
think
that's
she
fine, but I
came
don't want
last
to
year and
delay
talked to us
your.
about this. I think she came and she presented to the board.
She did.
And talked to us about it. Because we had the same reaction.
Maybe we wanted more.
She did.
So, if nothing else, we've got on the record that we would like more information
All right,
soon.
the motion on the floor is to approve everything tonight, with the exception of those out-of-country. Next meeting, we'll have on the agenda more information and have these back, the out-of-country back on the agenda for formal approval, because it's nice to have mom say yes before they travel. You know?
And the jazz.
All right, and jazz is off it too, yes, that's the motion. All right, so, everybody understand what they're voting on? All right, all those in favor? Any opposed? All right, good.
So,
Yes, Mary Ann.
I have a curiosity, as we vote, I noticed that our student representatives aren't voting, and in our policy, it says they have an advisory vote.
Yes.
So I'd like to encourage you all to use your, power to vote. It's advisory, so it doesn't get recorded, but I, for one, would really like to know how you feel about the things that we do.
And Olivia brought that up. I was unaware.
Yeah, I thought,
It's an invite, so we need to show our opinion.
so like on, like, what we just did, like,
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
You could have, raised your hand for or against.
All right,
So Reem, do you want to tee this up with respect to your exhibit you all have before you on the student data?
I do have a question about the title. So what we're looking at is growth. Composite on versus where students are on the different standards, right?
Well, we do have information included in this, around where students are actually landing as well. We're gonna have a PowerPoint as well.
Okay, I just wanna,
So, this is fresh off the.
Bill,
Are you projecting that?
I am. Is that okay?
It's great, I just didn't know who to say.
I got it.
Got it, great. Okay, so, we will be having the administrative team tonight introduce to us, some information around our student performance. This will be, reviewing NWEA measures this evening. As we move on in the school year, we will have data release, regarding the MEA's, performance. And, once that is, released from the state, we'll make sure that you are aware of that. That'll be coming soon. I think, just to start off, before the principals get into specifics, NWEA is interesting data, of course, because it is, individualized. It's a pretty fast turnaround. Students can take these tests and we can see within the same day exactly where they're landing. Please remember that when you see information about NWEA RIT scores, which is the way they're reported, it's telling you where the child's instructional readiness is. And so we do have RIT bands of performance that we hope students are going to be landing in. But what we really care about is our ability to see their instructional readiness lands in a particular place, and that we are matching instructional strategy where they are so that we see the growth. So that's the title, okay? So I'm gonna turn it over now, and you'll hear about specific schools.
So we started to, when we began talking about looking at our media data, these are just some things to consider as we look at this data and the trends. The special ed numbers over the last 5 years have increased. We look at the weaknesses and strengths in the NWEA strands, numbers and operations, algebraic thinking, and our strengths and weaknesses seem to vary year to year when we dig down into the data. The number of restraints we have continuously go up with the behaviors in the classrooms. The number of tests per grade level that we give, the time away from instruction, extra tests, the NAEP, the COGAT, the state testing, extra for grade 5, the DIBELS, the F&P, those are just some tests that we give kids throughout the year, and especially in the spring when the last section of the NWEAs are taken. Socioeconomic status, is it remaining the same in the district? You know, we need to consider that when we're looking at our data. Technology, which is one of the very positive things that we've had since we've had a lot of increase in our technology. We've needed to add ADITA students for behavior, BCBA for behavior. We've added Acadia case managing. So we're experiencing a lot of changes in the clients we serve, and so we are looking at adjusting our approach. But when we do look at our data dive over a 5-year span, we need to consider all the variables, not just one test score. And also we're looking at what the correlation is between the NWEAs and the its strands and the state assessment. We're trying to figure out how we can better align those to increase our results.
Okay, so I'm up first. So McGraw, the first year of having K-1-2 take the NWEAs was last year. So you're gonna notice there's a lot of not tested. So that's why that's not tested, just to give you an idea. At the top, it kind of tells you what was going on at that time. We had everyday math implemented in 2014-15. everyday math was implemented here. We had teachers piloting Envision here. The full implementation was that year. We are now currently in year 2. We finished off year 2. We are now currently in year 3. So we have changed to Envision here. We have got the units of study in phonics is now being piloted at the kindergarten level, which goes along with the units of study in writing, which we've had a lot of this success with. We also have the units of study in reading also is being done this year as well, which means that will be a K-5, am I correct, Jen? It's right up through 5th grade, K-5, all the way up. So we're excited about where we're going in this area. At 14-15, grade 2 in math was well below where we would expect them to be. Our reading was well above. In 15-16, we were below and above. We continue to be below and above. Below, above. Last year, we look at the kindergarten, it was above in math and above in reading. We were above in math, at benchmark in reading, and above at math and at benchmark in reading. So it looks, based on this information, it looks like our math is continuing to, but again, like Dawn said, the strands change about which strand is stronger than the other. But at this time, it looks like we're making a good progress in the math area. I'm excited. We have just completely finished all testing at K-1-2 for the first round of testing. So we'll keep you posted on that. And if you want to pop to the next one, Bill, this is an actual piece of information from the NWEA website that we use to kind of gauge our thinking. This is called a growth. So if you look, and I know it doesn't show it very well in that, but there's a little diamond shape here. This is the school norms projected growth. So we only had from fall to spring. Typically they do it, is it spring to spring? It's usually a spring to spring, but we didn't have spring from the year before. So this one is fall to spring. So where they projected our kindergartners, they call it 0, where they projected our kindergartners to land, this is where we actually landed in this particular, this is in math. I believe this is math, yeah. And then this is grade 1. This is where we predicted, the algorithms predicted we would land, and we actually landed here. So it's very positive. And then 2nd grade, this is where they expected us to be, and this is where we are. The other thing I just want to point out real quick is that you'll notice that the expected growth isn't as much each year. It gets harder to make those bigger leaps in the points as the years go on for the NWEAs. Did you have any
What is
questions?
the RAT growth, and Regan, you told me what that acronym meant.
Well, it's a Roush,
Yes.
It's the RIT score. Well, what does that mean? Is that a percentile of students? There's numbers there, and I'm just wondering what that means.
This is, you mean like where it says mean RIT?
No, on the bar chart.
The RIT growth, this is the number of RIT points we would expect them to go up. Am I correct? That's what
I kind of laid that a little bit. So when you're dealing with the RIT score itself, it talks about the where students should be able to be performing. So you'll have 3 sections. So when you're taking the test will adjust accordingly. They'll ask a harder question until they get it wrong. They'll ask an easier question that keeps bouncing back and forth until they're approximately 50% accurate. And that is called your zone of teaching or proximal development. What you want to be able to do is that's their instructional value or the RIT score. So the bar to the right would be the one that they're getting 75% of the time correct. And that's stuff that they may have to have a quick review on, but they've been able to show pretty accurate. The other stuff is they're getting 75% of it wrong. And those are things you want to be able to introduce as you come down through. But with the RIT score itself, the NWEA is set as a projected amount of growth throughout the year. Because your fall score, where they're asking people to be placed at, and your end of the year score, even if you were flatlining and getting the exact same score, it is considered growth based on the norm piece because it's a moving scale. But depending on the grade level and everything else, they're expecting anywhere from 6 points to 10 points to 12 points of growth for each student. And a RIP band is usually about 10 points that itself. So they're pretty big chunks. So that's right.
Good evening, everyone. So Kristen really kind of alluded to our sub, and we tried to be consistent with this. And so one of the things I have also added in addition to when we implemented certain curriculum, was also leadership, because we had a transition. This is my third year. We had the great fortune of having Mrs. Boone with us, and she did a phenomenal job. This is our transition. And so you can see, and I'm trying to show you what the cohorts did, because just going grade to grade, it's important to track what that group of students did. So in their, for example, their third grade year, this group in 14-15 started at benchmark in math, above benchmark in reading. When they slid, and this is really interesting, because I want to, how do we do this? How are we at benchmark in math, and then the next year be below benchmark? Then watch, right down here, slightly below. Those are some challenges we're facing. And one of the things I want to bring you back to, because I love this question that you asked, Erin. So what's that RIT score? We look at two things very, very closely. Every student is coded on two things. One, how did they do on that RIT achievement? Are they normatively where we would expect all third graders, all fourth graders, all fifth graders? We do that at 3 points in the year: the fall, the winter, and the spring. And as such, as a data team and as instructional cohorts, we're looking at what instructional moves does that data tell us. We know that we have a pattern in math especially. Numbers and operations and algebraic thinking are two strands that have been really tough for us. One of the ways that we're tackling that is as grade level cohorts. For example, the student learning objectives, my fifth grade team is all having a common SLO around how do we strategically as a grade level team target weak areas to provide interventions. They're studying that closely because we want to see two things. One, we want to raise them to that achievement level of where all students should be. But secondly, we want to see the growth. One of the things that we noticed was that you can have high achieving students, very capable students, who don't make as much growth. We asked ourselves some really tough questions around that. And as a result, some great changes were made around our gifted learners, because we want to make sure that they have access to rigor and challenge and depth and complexity, just as our struggling learners, who it is always that productive struggle. So when you see this all over the map, it does kind of make your head spin. We're anchoring ourselves again on how students are doing within those RIT scores. For example, a third grader in math, in the fall, we want them to be at a 190. In the spring, we want them to be at a 198. That span between 190 and 198, about 8.5 points of growth we're hoping for. Sometimes a student who was above, let's say they started at a 200 when they came in, that's a great score. But let's say they only made 5 points of growth, they're not going to achieve their growth goal, even though they're above benchmark. So I just want to kind of give you the moves here, because there's always more than just a number, okay? And we're very, very cognizant of that. Bill, could you change to the next slide? Thank you. Okay, so as a team, I want to show you this. Spring to spring, as a school, this is 17-18. And I went to our team and I said, yikes, this doesn't look good, right? Because it doesn't. Here's where we were supposed to be. Here's where we were in third grade. Fourth, fifth, we had some tough conversations. This does not mean we didn't have students achieving and achieving well, okay? However, we asked ourselves, okay, what does this tell us about our learners? And I'm proud of those professional conversations happening, because our team really worked hard. Take this ahead to the next year, we go to that slide. I want you to clap at this. Booyah! This is like our Super Bowl moment. I told them they're all the GOAT, they're all the Brady's. We made huge progress, and you can see those cohorts made progress too. 5th grade blew it out of water, 4th grade right there, and 3rd knocking on the door, but again, a much better picture, okay? This is always gonna be ongoing. It's always going to be fluid, and we have to calibrate ourselves too, but it's not just about the number. What is that student doing? Some changes we've noticed in our school in the last 5 years, our 5-year trend, our special ed population has gone up almost 58%. Okay, that moment. Now, that means we're teaching them well. I am so proud of this. And our population is coming in with different needs. That doesn't mean that McGraw's not doing a bang-up job. It's that our population is changing, and we have to respond to that. So, this is a great opportunity to thank you for your support, because you gave us 2 huge additions last year. In our ESSA work, I'm looking at Janie here, and Kara, you guys were helpful in helping us move towards a math interventionist. And we have one now. So students that need to make progress, that need those tier 2 interventions, are getting support, and that's because you said yes, and you advocated for that. Secondly, we also got an additional special ed case manager. With that increasing population, we hadn't adjusted to that. Your support is helping us make strides this year, and I'm excited about that. Could our numbers look different? Yes. Next year, yes, they could. But we're striving for this, and we're paying attention to this as well. And again, I'm proud of our team, and I'm proud of our district for the conversations we're having, because we're really trying to drive that achievement for every student in a customized way. I don't. Do you have any questions for me? Okay, you want me to be Me too.
I'm bringing Don up with me because he's the expert here, having just come in this year. But like Jen, we are looking at cohorts, so if you look at the colors, that does show you the cohorts. The thing that I think is impressive, just at a quick glance, is if you look at the 8th grade, these are the kids that are leaving us, and they're all either at or slightly above or above benchmark, so that kind of shows the growth that they are getting while they're at Reed's growth. But when I start saying anything, Dawn says, wait, Susan, and tells me more, so I'm gonna let Dawn, I'm yielding the floor.
I like the numbers, okay? I'm able to delve into them in different ways, but one of the things we have to keep in mind, this is gonna impact each school differently. But right here on this marker, as we're going down through, new years were renormed nationally. Okay, so you're comparing people, the students to 5 million other students. Inner city, out in the country, whoever's taking them, but it was renormed then. So what was considered benchmark here, it's completely different target here, okay? So it's gonna vary a little bit. Keep that in the back of your mind. The other thing that I noticed, especially over from one year to another, if we were to look from fall to spring, or we look at whether a kid is at benchmark right now, when we look at what the data was, one of the things I also noticed, oftentimes kids have that summer regression, okay? Where we expect them to lose that. I had several kids, when I looked at their individual scores, when we tested them in the first thing when they came back to school, their scores went up considerably. And what it tells me is that when we're testing them at the end of the school year, sometimes they just want to get done. We try to keep that in the back of our mind, okay? But we have just the opposite effect with some of the kids. Some of those kids are perfectionists, and they want to stay there for an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours. And the question is, do we let them? Or do we say, okay, let's move on? So we're toying with that as well with some of our students. But one of the things we are looking at right now is not only we're looking at going way straight across, where our benchmark, are they staying at benchmark, what's going on? But we're looking at cohorts of students as we're going diagonal and seeing where those trends are, as we go through.
Thank you. So these are similar to the same slides that you saw from the growth strategies. This shows you the projected growth based on the NWA, So again, this was, fall 2018 to spring 2019, so this isn't an entire year, this is just within a calendar, school calendar year. So the sixth graders achieved the growth, the seventh graders were a little below, the eighth graders achieved the growth in math, that's math. And then reading, you know, again, this is sort of what, the other principals were talking about, sometimes it's just kind of, all over the place. Here we had, you know, like, remember the sixth graders did great in math, below in reading, seventh graders hit, and then look, the eighth graders knocked it out of the park, you know, so that's sort of the thing that you really try to dig down and figure out what's happening. But again, you can't really compare this across, because these are 3 different grades of kids. And that's what I have for you.
They did a great job, I don't have much more to explain, so that's great, plan as well. So, I just wanna caution you when you look at this holistically as a, growth for students, because if you do look at cohorts, remember that at Smith School, we have 50 kids in and 50 kids out per year. So cohorts are a loose word when you're looking at this, because I guarantee you, those children and those children are a whole different ballgame. So, but what is really good about looking at this is if we look at it across grade level, we get to see some, you know, programmatic kind of issues. And if you notice, kindergarten and first grade are doing great. And that's where we have, you know, a lot of interventions for those young kids, and we have, you know, all kinds of special activities for them to keep going. And as you notice, as we go down, it gets harder and harder, and when we get to fourth grade, you know, we have some concerns there. We need to start looking at fourth grade a little more carefully. You know, what is it that we're doing in the younger grades that we're missing in the upper grades? So this is good data for us to look at and to interpret. I think they did a wonderful job explaining the rest. I mean, if you have any questions about that, I just think, you know, we do look, what I think the NUMIAs do for us is they give individual scores for kids. And we look at every single kid as an individual, where they are, what they need. We can look at their strands individually, we can look at, you know, how they progress, their growth. And that's the advantage of the NUMIAs, is 3 times a year we get to really take a deep dive individually in each kid, rather than a holistic view. It's nice to see this, and it's good to get some information from, but I think looking individually at the kids is what's really gonna get us those changes we need. And that's just like all the others, this is from 2017-18, it was just a sample of how we can look at the growth for that, year span.
So, the boxes, the boxes with the projections, that's, grade as a whole,
Yes,
right? It's the
correct.
kind of the average or
Yes, it's the growth of the 3 times they've taken the test.
of the whole grade?
Yes, and that can mean in October if somebody left, or in April if somebody came in,
Right.
that's all averaged.
So conceivably then, when you look at it individually in grade 1, there would be students who would have not met that benchmark.
Correct.
Sure.
And some that could exceed. Yep.
Thank you.
So, going into the Wagner one of the things that I was looking at as we were doing it, I had an opportunity to look at the feeder schools and being able to watch as far as trends go down. So again, we're here, where we're below benchmark to slightly below to above, okay, with our mathematics. That's really good, but I don't know why, okay? The data doesn't give you enough information to find out what was it that was changed, okay, during that particular time, or was it the group of students where maybe maturity happened to be there, or, you know, it was a good test day. I don't know enough about the history or enough about what was going on to see about why that went up. The number's not there yet for me. But if you wanna go to the next slide. One of the things I am looking at though, that does give me a question of concern, is if this is where the projection is, and this is just for from fall to spring, okay? This is where we're expected to have growth, but we're falling short right across the board. one of the questions that I have in the back of my mind is how are we using the New schools, right, to be able to look at what we're teaching and how we're teaching it. Because one of the things with the SLOs, that we oftentimes will put our New on there, we create the SLOs, and we hope for the best in the end. What are we doing to be able to target certain strengths of each individual kids? And the question that I have here, right, is what are we doing now to the next part? And those are great conversations that we have with staff, right? Because it forces a deeper understanding. Does that mean that we're going to lose our kids in the process? No, we're actually going to be hopefully getting them better, because we're trying to find out exactly what is it that they need. We know for right now, numeracy, we're struggling with my building, okay, just with number sense. Some of the basic algorithms or understanding multiplication, division, they're hard. Not that they haven't been shown, it hasn't been solidified in our brain yet. And that's what we're working on. But then we take it to the NUIA level where, or even with Pearson Realize, as you mentioned earlier, now all of a sudden you have multi-step questions, okay, which is going to take into consideration the numeracy piece. But how do I go from A to Z? Where is that right now?
How well is that NUIA correlated with Envision 2?
I don't know. I wish I did, but I don't.
Because that could be a lot of your answer. I mean, if it's not correlated well with it.
And I don't know where
You're
it goes.
teaching one thing and you're testing something else.
And
the other thing is when you looked at the early grades,
Yeah.
the kindergarten, Dawn, when we were talking about that, all they've ever had is Envision. So that language, that whole process that's all they know. Whereas the other grades, they've had another mindset. They've been teaching it differently. It went real quickly, so I didn't get to look. But the previous one, when I looked at it, actually, the longer they stayed with it, the better they did, because all of the process, the language, everything. Because that program is extremely difficult.
It is very rigorous.
Very difficult. So, a couple things. One, the correlation of the two. And the second one, it'll be interesting to see 2 or 3 years from now where this kindergarten and first grade cohort, regardless of who comes and goes.
Right.
It'll be interesting to see.
Well, there's also one other thing that I'm trying to find out for. Back when state assessments were the kneecaps, there was a correlation and predictability between the NUIAs and that. I don't know if it exists now. I've been trying to find out, and I'm coming up with some roadblocks.
That is huge.
If I can just interject something, just because I've come and been in a lot of math classes, and the Envision program is very literacy based, like there is just so many word problems, and most of, if you look at the SAT, this is what the math teachers at the high school where I was before would tell me, it's all word problems now, and they have had to, talk about math literacy rather than just math numerology or whatever you want to call it. So I think that that's sort of an interesting thing, and when I kind of looked over kids' shoulders while they were taking the NUIA, it did seem like a lot of it was literacy heavy, but that's a big shift, and I think that I think you have a really good point. It will be interesting to see how this cohort that has had it from kindergarten,
Yeah, echo what Jane was saying. Can you go back one slide? The reading, to Jane's point, is the reading, which actually seems to do, if I look back at all the slides, it seemed like it was doing somewhat better. Is the reading that's being taught in alignment with the reading that's expected in math? It seems to me that the compound word problems that I'm seeing that require algebraic solutions in grade 6, I don't remember, we're old, right? We didn't have that, but it does.
You're my age.
The ability to dissect the problem that you even need to solve is where some of the roadblocks are.
Yes and no, okay? There's some literacy in the mathematics itself, where, what does is means, what does sum means, and so forth. But it goes beyond that. Some of the things that they're experiencing right now is just that. The easier problems, like Jack has 3 apples, he gets 2 more, how many apples does he have now? That's not like question number 10 after the test. Question number 10 is correct, right? It's because it's designed to be able to push their thinking and have a little bit of productive struggle, okay? And oftentimes when kids are forced to put their mind through that piece, if you look at it as a learning tool, okay, the brain's creating more synapses for those pathways. So even though it's a point of frustration right now, it's actually creating more pathways for them to be able to do future problems. In a nutshell.
But I do think there is some correlation with the literacy, because the literacy strand that we have the hardest, the most challenge with is the nonfiction text, you know, and that is the same. I think the kids, to our credit, love to read stories and have all this rich literacy, but this idea of now you've got to take those same skills and look at, you know, a multi-step word problem that is just like, I don't even know how to describe it. Fact-based is the only word that comes to my mind, but it's not a story. You know, there's no narrative around it. Except
As a
for
math
maybe,
person, that's the fun stuff.
well, yes, this is,
The other thing, they are now
The
getting
English side.
those, but they're getting those now at second grade. I
Okay.
mean, my, first grade too, like, I've got two of my teachers here, and they can actually, these are like my math gurus too, but, they can speak to that because they do, they're getting these, and so I'm excited to see, like,
Yeah.
you know, echoing off what Jane's saying, that what happens when they do get up there, because they've been getting that.
The language will,
Yeah.
it is very literacy based.
Yes.
And if the younger children are taught how to dissect it, how to
And they
think about
are.
it,
Yeah.
how to look for what's important, what's not important, to be able to get rid of stuff they don't need, and that's what they're taught.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
I'm anxious to see how that plays out. Because that program is exceptionally literacy based.
I have a couple questions. You said that you can see the individual scores of a student.
Yes.
So are you monitoring that year over year? So are you also isolating a certain group, like perhaps your bottom 10 to 15%, to see what development they have over their time? Like if they are theoretically still within the school, is that something that's being monitored?
Definitely.
That would be very
we have-
interesting to see.
We have data walls,
That
and
growth and
so
development
every
for that.
student, we code them by risk, and so if they're coded as purple,
Well,
they're
I don't wanna
fine,
say that,
right?
but that's where I was going with it.
You know,
So-
and if they're at risk, then that kicks in interventions, and so tier one, we've got a math workshop model, we are great differentiators, we've got the right curriculum, we're getting better at that. Tier two means above and beyond the classroom, and that's an area where I think we're having big discussions about now what. For us at Weatherby, that was a math interventionist for support services, just like we have for literacy, because we can see those literacy trends, boy, we're stronger there, right? And we can catch kids that don't qualify, you know, for special ed or higher level services. And so I think that is a big conversation that we need to have above and beyond what we're already offering. But we are monitoring those students very, very carefully, and there are protocols in place.
Now, does the parent get told what the score is? Like, do they get that information as well?
They should be.
We mail it home, you know, they go home with trimester report cards, so it actually, ours have already gone home, so after fall testing, again in the winter, we do not want that to be a secret.
And one of the other things, when you're dealing like with special services, they oftentimes will reference the NUIAs as the norm reference test, because we wanna look at different markers, but we look at that as where it's in relationship to their peers, throughout as well.
Can I just interrupt and get us back on track, because I would like Bill to present, and then we can continue to ask questions.
Sorry.
I took a little bit of a different approach because we only test our freshmen with NUIAs. So what I did throw up here, and again, I hope that if you want a copy of this at some point, so you can dive a little bit deeper. I have a bunch of slides with some numbers on it, but this gives you that normative data by grade level. So what I've done is I've just kind of pulled out what that 9th grade level is, where we test and where our students perform. I've provided the math up through. I've also provided the reading, and I have a better slide for you to look at now. But again, just so you can dig in and see what our trends are. Also provided the trend of where we want to be throughout, again, K-12, K-11. But here's the data that I think is most important to look at. So over our last 5 years, our math norms for the fall, again, it's a growth model, which is why we like NUIA. You get a chance to look at them in the fall and in the spring. We do actually do a third testing in the winter for our students who are in special ed, so we have another data point to measure. but I included just the full cohort. So if you take a look, math norms for fall 230.3, spring 233.4, so you're looking at like roughly a 2-point growth, a 3-point growth. So if you look at what our scores have done, we're consistently performing above what the math norms are, which is a real positive. And if you look at the way our data is trending from 14-15 up to 18-19, that's a positive. So we, back in 14-15, again, you saw the benchmark change, as Don alluded to, but we were only at 2.8 growth for the year. So those are really good numbers that we want to see, students making that type of growth. Anything above 2 is significant at the high school level. So those are really positive. And the other thing you'll see as we jump to the reading scores is that we are not experiencing the same amount of growth, but we are still consistently above what the norm data is. Again, 1.7 is statistically different, significant, but if you take a look, we are trending in the right direction. 14-15 to 28.7, at least we moved up a point in that regard. But we use these, again, I want you to have this so you can take a look and dive a little bit deeper, but things that you should know how we use the NUIA data. I was rereading some SLOs this past week in preparation of this, and one of my teachers was looking at the geometry strand because she teaches geometry. And that was one of the things, looking at all of her students' grades and what's going on. Looking at the final and looking at her growth data, one thing that really frustrated her was that line of algebraic thinking. So, and the reason the students were upset with that is like, well, you know, we've done algebra, we're in geometry, why is it that we're struggling here? Well, there were algebra 2 concepts that they haven't hit yet, and that's what NUIA does, is it gives you the really tough, and it gives you the easier, and it gives you a balance as you move along. It changes as they go. So our teacher was looking at that and said, okay, here's what I want to do this year. In my geometry class, I want to build in some mini lessons. So our teachers are talking about this and having discussions around what we can do to hopefully improve those areas, but looking at those content pieces. So we use them for recommendations for course placement, which means we're looking at every student's NUIA score along the way. That's not the only thing we look at. Obviously, teacher recommendation, past performance, student family choice as well. We want students to challenge themselves, but we use that as a starting point. It allows us to look at analysis of strengths and weaknesses in course content curriculum because you have those bands, and we can look at where we are weaker and where we are stronger. Again, that informational text, that's where we tend to struggle more in the reading side. It's changed our course sequence and offerings, and again, that's still part of the conversation of what we do and how we do it and how we serve our students' needs the best. And then looking at our SAT data, which is never wonderful to look at, tracking the cohort is very different, right? So you look at us in our NUIA scores, and we're performing above. And it just is frustrating to see that doesn't always track the same way when you jump to an SAT score. But we're also looking at a growth model, which is much more helpful for us to look at when we look at how we're performing the fall and how we're performing the spring. I encourage you to look through the data, though, on your own. I think we should share it and just take a dive if you have questions.
Great, thank you.
That will be available to us,
I was gonna say.
the PowerPoint.
Yeah, there's no reason why you shouldn't have it. I mean, we can share it with you. I don't think we've shared it with you yet.
Okay, that would be great. I do have a follow-up question to Jessica's, and it's going to be a little unfair to ask this, but I would like to ask it and possibly have it placed on the future agenda. One of the reasons why I think we went to the second meeting in a month was to really explore things like this. And so I was a little concerned when I saw the agenda have things like personnel on it and policy things. I thought all of those sorts of things were going to be taken care of in the first meeting so that we would have a full.
Most noticeably, you don't have subcommittee reports on this one.
I understand.
But your format of the agenda follows your policy.
I understand that, but I'm just expressing my frustration with the fact that this has been a wonderful presentation, and we are running out of time. And we have an executive committee meeting. So, Mary, at the last education committee meeting I went to, gave us a handout which was based on the, and and it broke down, percentages, and all I can pull out of my head right now is a particular percentage, that 75% of our students are, meeting their benchmark. And I don't remember what school or what grade or anything, and I really wanted to get back with her to learn more about what that was telling us. So, but there are also 25% of the students who were not meeting those benchmarks. And so I would like to explore further with all of you, if we can, at some future meeting, what that is telling us and what that's telling you, and how we're moving in a direction to get those 25% of our students meeting their growth benchmarks. That doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be proficient on that's a whole different measure. But the growth is the more exciting thing for me, and I would like to dig into that a little deeper so that we here understand what it's going to take to get our students feeling successful at all levels. So I really would encourage us to think again about the agendas that we're setting up for our second meeting. Thank you.
Any questions of those who presented?
Just thank you.
Excellent.
Very
Individuals.
really appreciate the focus on growth. Do we have any meetings that we need to schedule?
I'd like to schedule behavioral review. We have our dropout prevention committee meeting in November, but I'd like to set up the December meeting now because of holidays and all the rest. So I'd like to ask Alan and Sarah's on that committee, and Nick's not here, whether the 12th or the 19th of December would work. It's a 1:30 Thursday afternoon meeting. I'd like to go with the 12th. Would Sarah, would that work for you?
At this point, it should.
Okay, very good, I will do that then. So behavioral review will meet December 12th at 1:30. We set up for accomplishment.
Any other meetings?
I have a question. On our calendar, it says that night before Thanksgiving, there's a school board meeting at 7 o'clock. Are we going to do that?
Throw the turkey
I
in.
will
Would
be.
somebody like to make a motion not to?
I'd
be open to that motion.
Unfortunately.
I make the motion.
Second.
All right, any questions about canceling that November meeting? All right, all those in favor of canceling that meeting? Okay. One meeting in November, folks, come out and join us.
Should we tell them?
No.
It's on the record, Chair.
Sorry, I couldn't read that. Madam Chairman, I move that we go into executive session to discuss a personnel matter according to 1 MRSA, section 405/6/.
Can I ask you to reread that as a legal matter instead of a personal matter?
Well, the document I have in my hand specifically says personnel. Oh, I'm on the wrong page.
Yeah, read that one.
Madam Chairman, I move that we enter executive session to discuss a legal matter according to 1 MRSA, section 405/6/.
Can I have a second, please? All those in favor? Thank you. That second is down on us.
Turn it off now.